All right, so in today's video, we're going to talk about wires and connecting lugs and how you can go from a lug to stripped to crimped to wrapped. So here we go. Let's get started. We're going to cover three things today. On one, how do you crimp a lug on? How do you crimp it on correctly? What is the right process and what are the right tools? Two, how do you make it look good when it's finished? How do you make it look professional? And then three, what tools does it take to do this? So we'll cover all three of these items. First up, let's talk about the purpose of a lug. The lug's purpose is to ensure that the connection between what you're connecting this to, and in this case, let's talk about how this would connect to a bus bar. Now, the bus bar, you would want the lug to lay flat on the bus bar so that the screw can go completely on with absolutely no difference or space between them. Meaning that when we protect this lug and when we connect this lug, we want the connection to be as complete as possible to the wire, and we want to bond it safely, and I'll walk you through each of those steps. So the first step is, how far up do you cut the wire or do you strip the wire? Now, in this case, I would strip the wire enough to where it goes all the way into the lug. And as you can see from this point, the lug is solid. This is a solid copper lug that's tinned. Don't use the ones that are hollowed out at the ends or that are lightweight. These make all of your connections and are your most common failure point in a system. So you need to make sure you get this part right. So strip enough to where everything that is going to be compressed when you crimp this is included in this lug. And in my case, you can see here that that's going to press into about right here at the edge of this. And then when it's crimped down, it's going to crimp down like this here. And that means that everything that is pressed in there will be totally crimped. So that's how far I want to strip it. And in this case, it's about a little over a ½ inch, not quite 3/4 of an inch. And then that should slide in nice and snug and fit perfectly on the cable. So that's how far up you should strip it. Now, how I stripped it, in order to take this off, is I just took a nice sharp razor and I scored the edges of this and slowly worked this off to where the paper that's on the inside of it comes out, but none of the wire strands are broken. You don't want to break the wire strands when you're stripping this or you're defeating the purpose. Keep in mind, your job here is to create the best bond between this and the wire that you can so that this can make a good bond with the connector here. All right, so the next part is how much do you want to crimp and how far down do you want to crimp it? This is a hydraulic crimper, and I'll include a link from Amazon where you can get this. They run about $35 if I remember correctly. But in my case, what you want to do is you want to crimp this down to where it's tight on the wires, but not so tight that it smushes it out too much. So as you can see here, my crimp completely covers the wire perfectly, allowing me to crimp down tight enough. And let me get the other one and I'll show you. I don't want to cause these strands to go out here. Crimp down tight enough to where there's a tiny wing on the side, but not so much so that it pushes out and flares out. This allows me to build a good cold bond between the inside and have a full crimp all the way around the edges of this and to ensure this is connected properly. So once that's done, then you'll take your crimping tool, you'll put the keys in. Now this one comes with a bunch of different sizes for different cables. In this particular size, I'm going to put these back into the machine, the little crimping tool. And this thing is pretty easy to use. You basically put in the crimpers that you want. You turn this to the right, closing the hydraulic valve, left to open it, right to tighten it. Now, what's really important is when you're mounting these, you want to make sure that the mounting is the same that it's going to be placed in, because in my short cables here, I don't have a lot of room for the cables to twist or turn. So you want to make sure that you get these exactly right. And since this is a bus bar, it's going to be mounted on a wall like this, right next to another bus bar, I need to make sure that these are perfectly flat going across. So make sure when you do that, that you find a way to check them perfectly flat. Now in my case, I can just put them on this piece of plastic right here and make sure that they're perfectly flat and that it's all the way in the wire. And then in order to crimp it, you just slide it in, you put it exactly right where you want the crimp to be, and in my case, it's right in the middle of this. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can. You put it right in the middle of this crimping tool. I'm going to turn a little bit so you get a little bit better view. So you put this here, right in the middle of this crimping tool, and then I slowly start to crimp it down just to get enough to hold it in place to make sure that it's right. Now, I have a little bit of room on this side where the wire sticks out a little bit further towards the end of the lug here. And I've got a little bit of room on this side where that flare is not part of my crimp, because that flare is the part that seams up smooth with the insulation when I'm done. Then I'll just slowly double check that it's flat. And as you can see here, mine is twisted just a little bit. So I want to turn it just a little bit to match, get that exactly right, and make sure it's nice and flat. Make sure it's inserted all the way. And then you just want to start crimping it down. And what this will do is it'll start squeezing that wire or that crimper around it. Now, because we've adjusted the lugs, we know that we can tighten this down quite a bit in order to get that nice and tight around there. And it shouldn't flare out too much. And let about another half a crimp here. Yep, that's nice and tight there. Then you should be able to loosen this up. And as you can see here, that has a nice tight crimp all the way around, and it's nice and flat, and it'll mount perfectly on this, just like that, and lead to the next bar. Now, that takes care of how to strip it, how to crimp it. Now, the last piece is how to make this look professional, because as it stands right now, this looks like some amateur built it in their garage. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure you buy this shrink wrap that goes with them. Now this shrink wrap, you want to trim it to where it covers the entire circuit, but do not cover anything that would interfere with this bolts connection here, because nothing can get in between where this tightens up and where the insulation is. So we're going to pull that insulation back just a tiny bit. So we want it down at the bottom of this twist lug here like it is on this side, but not so far in that it causes problems. And this piece is cut pretty well. It has a little overstretch on this end here, but when I heat that up, it's going to shrink down just perfectly. So what you do then is you take a heat gun. This is a cheap heat gun. I think there's like 10 bucks, 20 bucks at Harbor Freight. I'll link one from Amazon so that you can pick up also. You turn the heat gun on, and this will cause this shrink wrap to shrink dramatically for you. You just have a little patience, and as you can see, it's starting to tighten up around it. And this has a little bit of glue in it that will seal this and make it waterproof also. Now I spend a lot of time on beaches and rivers, so for me, making everything marine grade instead of just copper, I have tinned copper, is really important. And that's not true for everyone, but for me it is. Ooh, that one's hot. So as you can see, that shrunk around there very nice, sealed everything off, and that looks very professional now, and we know we have a good solid bond in there. Now, if you had a piece of insulation that was too big, for example, this one here, obviously if I put this insulation on, it's going to cover that lug completely. So what I want to do is I want to trim this piece of insulation in order to make it the right size. So I want to overlap it again down to probably about here, and I want to go down to the edge of the lap here. So I'm going to trim this one about right here, and I'm just going to take this and cut it at that length, and then I'm going to dry fit it on here to make sure that looks perfect. Now this piece is a little bit bigger. It is for a little bit larger wire. Now the nice thing about this shrink wrap is that it shrinks really quite a bit. I think some of them are 4-to-1, some are 5-to-1. So I'm going to do this one also. And you just twist it slowly, and it'll start to shrink on all the sides. As you can see, it's shrinking down now. And then it starts to form fit. It is getting a little bit warm. I'm going to do this side over here a little bit, let that one cool off. Then I'm going to go back to this side over here. Ooh, that is hot. All right, there we go. As you can see, that shrunk down really nice around that side. And it's a little tacky when you finish. But now we have two perfectly looking lugs that both fit without any interference on the top or the bottom to the screws. They're going to go here. And you can put both sides on there without any trouble, and they can connect to the other side, allowing me easy access to my fuse that fits right in the middle. As you can see, those come out looking quite professional looking, and you can use this on any size cable. It doesn't have to necessarily be a little short one, which was what I was doing today, is just replacing a fuse, the fuse holder to this kind as opposed to the kind you screw down on it. Anyway, that's how you put a lug on. I hope this helps. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, and I will include a parts list, both the scan code on the screen, and I will also include it in the comments down below. Hope this helps, and we'll see you on the next video.